This is a PlayStation 3, but it's not just any old PlayStation 3. Aside from the custom wrap that I have on it, it is a PlayStation 3 that is probably not like you've seen before. There is a lot going on the inside and on the outside. So let's take just a couple minutes and unpack all the secrets that this console is holding. If you follow my channel and you watch some of my videos, you've likely seen the PlayStation 2 mod. Or maybe you caught the video for the Nintendo Wii mod. Well, this is a relatively new one. Typically, this setup is usually run on one of these guys. Some of you may remember the PlayStation 3 Fat. It's actually a pretty sought after console these days, with all the backwards compatibility and whatnot. But this changes all of that. Why? Well, for starters, this thing is running custom firmware that allows it to load games from a program called Webman. This is 100% a software modification. You don't have to open up your console, do any chip soldering, or hardware modification to make this work. The hard drive that this console has inside of it is actually loaded with a bunch of PlayStation 2 games. But this 2TB external SSD is loaded currently with 195 PlayStation 3 games, 100 PlayStation 1 games, and thousands of emulators. Stuff like Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, all the Game Boy games, Atari. And if you're familiar with emulation, it's running RetroArch. I know what you're here for. You're here to see it. Well, let's check it out, shall we? All right, as we boot this thing up, it's gonna look like your classic PS3 XMB. On the XMB, we have the Webman folder, and in that folder, you have all of your PlayStation games. As you can see here, we have a folder with 195 PlayStation 3 games loaded onto it. All of these games here are running off that 2TB external SSD. You can kind of pick and choose which game backups you want to install on here. Now the next file down is going to hold the PlayStation 2 games. As you can see, I have 100 of them loaded on here. These are all running off of the internal hard drive. And there's a reason for that, but we'll get to that in just a moment. As you can see, it displays all of the box art for the games as well. In this folder here, we have the PlayStation 1 games. And again, I have 100 loaded on the external drive. You can cycle through all of your PlayStation 1 backups and pick and choose what you would like installed on this thing. But I will warn you, on this generation PlayStation 3, there is some compatibility issues with some of the older games. Now, as an added bonus, there is also 57 PSP games loaded on this thing. If you were a huge fan of the PSP, this is an added bonus. And of course, when you flip over, you have RetroArch. You open up RetroArch, and that's gonna have all of your old school emulators. All the Nintendo classics, the Sega classics, a lot of the arcade classics. You get the picture. A little interesting tidbit about this PS3 mod. When you load up PlayStation 2 games on a PlayStation 3 mod, as of right now, they cannot be run from an external hard drive. So on that original PlayStation 3 mod that had all the PS2 games on an external drive, when you wanted to play them, you had to transfer them to the internal drive in order to play them. So the solution here was put all of the PlayStation 2 games on the internal drive to begin with and load everything else up on an external SSD. Problem solved. Now once again, like all of my other videos pertaining to console mods, this is not a video to teach you how to do this mod. This is more of a spotlight video to show you what they're capable of. If you want to attempt this mod yourself, it's not terribly hard, and I'm sure there are plenty of places on the internet that you can find videos to do something like that. As you can see, this one here is my personal PlayStation 3, and I had it done by Dr. Mod. And if you don't know by now, he's done all my other consoles in my collection. If you want to get a hold of him, his email is always in the description of these videos. One other question that I seem to get a lot about the PS3 mod is, can you mod the slide door PS3? And as of right now, the answer is no, or there really isn't a very good mod, at least for this version of the PlayStation 3. So if you have one of these, I would not attempt to mod it. Not yet, at least. I think it's really cool to be able to have all of my favorite PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3 games all in one place so I don't have to pull my games off the shelf, which, just in case you were wondering, I do have complete libraries of. How and where you decide to get all of your game backups would be totally up to you. If these sorts of mods interest you and you want to give one of them a try, I suggest starting with the easiest one, which is the Nintendo Wii, and that video can be found here. And if you love watching videos about pop culture and retro gaming in general, you should subscribe to the channel here so you don't miss any videos like this in the future. And until next time, enjoy the journey.